Welcome to Stop the Noise, where small business specialists cut through the clutter to hone in on practical things small business owners can do to solve business challenges and move their business forward. In today's episode of Stop the Noise, Martin Katak and I are talking to Chris Kondu from Can-Do Consulting and Andrew Poulter from IRT Advisory about keeping your business afloat in today's economic storm and what to do if you can't. Andrew and Chris will discuss 10 red flags to watch out for that indicate your business could be in difficulty and what to do about them. Today we are talking about insolvency and nasty things happening to your business in the current economic storm. Well, we're assuming there is one. So can I start with why are we in an economic storm right now? Chris, do you want to head off with that one?
Hi, Brenda. Yeah, thank you. It definitely feels as if we are in an economic storm right now. Last week, our new Federal Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, made a fairly grim assessment of where we are at the moment, and talked about confronting financial challenges. He was pretty grim about it all and said that interest rates are going to be increasing, inflation is going to hit 8%, big increase to cost of living pressures and pressure on real wages as well. And I suppose why that's a problem is because it's hitting business owners, and business owners are definitely feeling the pressure to increase wages and to really carry the burden of this economic storm.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have any comments on that, Martin or Andrew, before we move on to the next question?
Well, the comment I'd throw in there is that it seems to me that it's largely a goods-driven inflation, and it's driven by factors outside of the Australian economy largely. You've got the COVID situation, you've got supply chain blockages as a result of Chinese ships being unable to come and go as they ordinarily would. You've got energy costs that are being driven by the war in Ukraine, the decision of the United States to cease being energy independent, and obviously the contracts that Australian gas suppliers have to supply overseas customers, the shortages that need to be, people are not wanting, in Europe at least, are not wanting to buy Russian gas, but they're forced to, but they're looking to replace it with other sources. So all of these things are outside of anyone's control in this country, and yet they're driving up our prices, which then there's a risk that that'll feed into wages because people don't like to see their purchasing power diminish, and so they want pay rises to compensate, but it isn't necessarily appropriate. And I think the Australian government's quite concerned about the possibility of a wages prices spiral.
Yeah. So how's that created this perfect storm for business insolvencies?
Well, the perfect storm is just the confluence of all of these factors of high inflation, rapidly rising interest rates, because the RBA have really mucked up by forecasting that interest rates would stay very low for another 2 years. I don't think anyone's really forecast the extent of inflation. Up until, I mean, now that it's happening, it's obvious to everyone, but 6 months ago, nobody really forecast this level of inflation. Interest rates are forcing cost increases on business. Asset values are starting to diminish. And now the tax office, who is a major driver of the insolvency market, are starting to ramp up their enforcement efforts in a big way because the government's broke and it needs the money. So all of these things are going to impact on businesses who are trying to survive in a difficult environment. Mind you, some are making good money, some are struggling.
Yeah, which probably leads to this slide that we're currently looking at. So do you want to just talk us through what insolvency actually means?
Yeah, is that for me or for Chris?
Well,
we can both talk it through.
Both dive in. Yeah.
But I mean, just going through that slide, I mean, the basic definition of insolvency is when a business is unable to pay its debts as and when they fall due. So the analogy that I put there is that the boat is sinking and is no longer seaworthy. Andrew, you made the point though that it's not an isolated situation where you're not able to pay a bill or two. This is more of a long-term, almost terminal condition for a business.
Yeah, that's right. The statutory definition of insolvency is fairly simple, and the Corporations Act defines what solvent is, and it says if you're not solvent, then you're insolvent. So you've got to take the opposite. But the solvent person or corporation is one that can pay their debts as and when they fall due. But if only it were that simple, the mere fact that you may be one day late paying your taxes doesn't mean you're insolvent. The courts have a very well-defined method of determining whether a person or a company is insolvent, and it's based on the weight of evidence of a whole range of factors, which we'll go through. But the courts make a distinction between temporary illiquidity and which is not necessarily a terminal condition. It might lead to insolvency, but it sometimes is a recoverable situation. So, whereas insolvency is generally accepted as being a terminal condition that the person or company can't recover from. Yeah. I
think the other important point, Andrew, is something like this is only shown in hindsight, after the fact. When you're in your business and running that business, you're not conscious of whether you're insolvent or not. It's always something that's known after the event.
Yeah.
And you know, that's something that you probably come across all the time. That no one sets out to fail.
No one sets out to fail. But look, the Act does impose a duty on company directors to not incur debts when they're insolvent. So there is an obligation to monitor the performance of a company to make sure that it remains solvent. But most small business people are not trained to recognise these things. So they do it by gut feel, in a sense. If they're running out of cash and they don't have money to pay taxes or other costs, then they may have a sense that there's a problem. But generally speaking, small business people are not trained to be on the lookout for the symptoms. And so they're not consciously thinking we're insolvent, we're in breach of the Corporations Act. Those sorts of things come out later when an external administrator is appointed and conducts investigations, and in particular if matters come before the court. The court is the ultimate arbiter of when insolvency occurs. If the date of insolvency needs to be determined in the context of a legal proceeding. And we as liquidators will make estimates of the date of insolvency based on the weight of evidence, all of the factors that we'll talk about. But we can't make the decision. So we say we believe it was insolvent from a particular date. Ultimately, it's up to the court.
Okay, so is it time to start looking at those red flags, do you think, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so do you want to flick that slide, Chris, and then we'll start off with slide number one. There we go.
Okay, there it is.
Fantastic. The 10 red flags that your business may be insolvent. So did you want to talk to the first one, Chris, the negative working capital? And then we'll just work our way through them.
As we started off talking about all the factors impacting businesses, one of the biggest issues is negative working capital. It's been proven that probably the largest reason businesses fail is lack of financial management. So what this really is understanding the numbers as a business owners. And there's some really simple tests, Brenda, that the business owners can do to check whether or not they're in a negative working capital situation. It's quite simple, but they have to understand their numbers. Basically, they take a list of their current assets, which includes cash, inventory, accounts receivable, put that list in one pile, then put another list of their current liabilities, which will be things like what they owe their suppliers. And by current, what that means is it's something that's convertible to cash. So a business can sell their inventory and earn money from it. They can call a customer and collect an invoice that they haven't paid. So it's current assets and current liabilities. And basically, to keep it simple, if your current liabilities are more than your current assets, then you've got a problem. You're in a negative working capital situation. It's a simple test that business owners can run. It needs an understanding of your balance sheet and your trial balance, but it definitely is a red flag for a business. And it's something that they've got to be on top of. It's almost like a back of an envelope calculation. It doesn't have to be too complex.
That concludes the first part of this webinar. You can watch the full recording and download the checklist for this and all our Stop the Noise webinars in the BB4G Business Knowledge Bank Facebook group. It's free to join. Click the link below this video or go to www.facebook.com/groups/BB4G Knowledge Bank and click the Join Group button. The Stop the Noise webinar series is brought to you by the BB4G Business Advisors Alliance, a collective of small business service providers, specialists and advisors on a mission to ensure every small business owner has access to the knowledge, resources and support you need for your business to thrive in an ever-changing world.